Mine.
Welcome to the Filmcast review of Napoleon, the newest film by Ridley Scott that's out in theaters right now. I'm going to read the plot summary of this movie from IMDb. Napoleon is, quote, an epic that details the checkered rise and fall of French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte and his relentless journey to power through the prism of his addictive, volatile relationship with his wife, Josephine, end quote. So obviously Napoleon is a real life figure. We may make reference to events that actually occurred in reality. We will try not to spoil.
Although this movie doesn't.
Wow.
Wow.
We'll try not to spoil things about how the movie handles, the story, particularly in the last act and at the very end of the film. All that said, Devindra Hardawar, you and I are Scott heads from way back.
Sure.
Big fans of Ridley Scott.
I'm sure Jeff is too.
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean,
we're all part of this club.
I think he's had a mixed record, not Jeff, Ridley Scott. Yeah.
Yes.
And so, he's pretty hit or miss, but what you can definitely depend on in general is that he will have a really great eye for action, a great eye for sprawling scope. So all that said, really curious what he would do with a movie like Napoleon, where he's reuniting with Gladiator star Joaquin Phoenix, playing a very different character this time. What did you think of Napoleon?
You know what, guys? I think I've unlocked every recent Ridley Scott movie, and it's basically X, but what if they were a little freak? Really? That's The Last Duel. That's the Italian, the Gucci movie. That's so
you
many
think
things.
Ridley Scott's trying to tell us something, Devindra?
I don't know. Like in his, I also feel like, I think of Ridley Scott movies all the time, but especially the Replicants and Blade Runner, asking for more time, right? Demanding more life. And I almost feel like a lot of these projects are him just like being, I want to make things. I want to make as much as possible before I can't make things anymore. That being said, this is an interesting movie about a little freak, and especially Joaquin Phoenix, I think, is very. You can't really take your eyes off of him, and I'm not sure. Like, I think it's just because it's very interesting, but I have to say I did not like this movie very much. Like, I really wanted to. I am out here. I'm one of the Kingdom of Heaven defenders, especially the director's cut. The theatrical cut is kind of a mess, but the director's cut is one of Ridley Scott's best movies. So I'm always trying to unearth that like secret. Maybe the longer version would be better. Maybe there is more good that we're not seeing here, and maybe there is. He said that there is a 4+ hour cut that could be coming to Apple TV Plus at some point. I'll probably check that out. But what is here is just feels like a really by the numbers historical epic. There's none of the like great battle moments of like unleash hell from Gladiator. I don't think the battles themselves are shot in it. Like the scale is cool. It's cool to see so many people involved in a big action sequence, but I just feel like there's not much really happening here. I don't get much insight into Napoleon Bonaparte as a person other than he's a little freak sometimes. He's a little power hungry. He has a weird relationship with his wife, and I think Vanessa Kirby is very good. But yeah, this movie spends a lot of time telling us things that happened, but not like why they happened or why we should find any of this to be really interesting. Maybe for people who are always devouring, historical biographies and things like that, like maybe people more into the history would be down with it. But also, I hear this is not very historically accurate, so I feel like they'd be pissed too. I'm a little unsure who this movie is actually aiming for at this point.
Right. I think that's a great question, Devindra, because first of all, Ridley Scott has been on a, let's just say, interesting PR tour. I don't even know
historians.
I don't even know how to describe it, but he's just basically like F them historians. Like whenever people are like, I'm not sure if this is accurate, he's like, historians are losers. Have you ever met a historian you wanted to hang out with? Like that's basically, I'm paraphrasing. But
he also
that's basically
throws the screenwriter under the bus too. He's like, I could have read all those history books about Napoleon, but that's for the poor bastard that had to write the screenplay.
He
what a
is
line.
Really unapologetic about making the movie the way he's made it. He doesn't seem to care about pleasing anyone at all other than himself, which is fine. But
you could have just named the movie A Napoleon.
I do think it's interesting that, like I know people who are really into Napoleonic history, and they seem to not love this movie because it's like none of the stuff they wanted to see is in the movie. And so if you are into Napoleon, maybe you don't really like the movie that much. And if you're not into Napoleon, maybe the movie doesn't offer you that much to latch onto. I will say, I really think we're probably going to witness another Kingdom of Heaven situation.
Hope so. I'm always hoping for it to be better, right?
The 4-hour cut of Napoleon has been confirmed to be heading to Apple TV Plus at some point.
That sounds like a threat, actually.
When Kingdom of Heaven first came out, people were like, this movie is a mess. It's not very good. Then the extended cut came out and people said, this is really great. Wow, why wasn't this the original cut? I fear
because it was over 3 hours long. It was very, very long.
I think we are in for a repeat of that dynamic where I think one of the many reasons why this movie isn't that great is because there's just a lot of gaps in the story that are not filled, and it's just like what happened between these two events. And I do think we will get some more context when the 4-hour director's cut is released. So
I would just like to stop saying that. Like, we've been doing this honestly even since Blade Runner, right? Like there are different cuts of Blade Runner. Make a movie a little different, maybe a little better over time. Yeah.
Why is it so hard to cut the movie?
They gave Martin Scorsese 3.5 hours. Could he not have cut it down from 4 hours to 3.5 hours and released the whole thing?
Should have done the Bonaparte, not the Bona-hole. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. Yeah. Wow. I don't even know if I would have thrown it to you after that, Jeff.
That's your review. Yeah.
Jeff Cannata, what did you think about Napoleon?
I guess you could say what I thought about Napoleon is best summed up in the form of a limerick. It plays fast and loose with what's true, and the spectacle adds no value. He's a filmmaking master, but this one's a disaster. This film's Ridley Scott's Waterloo.
Wow.
You did not like this at all, Jeff. Wow.
I think if you just want to see pure spectacle, it delivers.
Yeah.
The ability of this filmmaker to shoot large-scale war scenes is unrivaled.
Yeah.
Unrivaled.
Agreed.
It's extraordinary. But they are completely devoid of any meaning. You say, oh, well, maybe the 4-hour cut will flesh out the story. There's no story.
The guy wants power.
There's no, this is like Napoleon's greatest hits. It's like just flashes of moments, some of which didn't even happen in real life. There's a whole sequence of breaking the ice, which is complete myth. Like, didn't happen at all.
There was a battle in Egypt, and that looks pretty cool.
They didn't show that one.
Yeah.
He didn't even show that one. They're just shooting at the pyramids. There's no battle there. That was a big moment in Napoleon's life, evidently.
Yeah. It did look cool shooting at the pyramids, though.
Dude, this movie is like...
There's an article in the New York Times entitled, Napoleon didn't really shoot cannons at Egypt's pyramids.
Oh, come on. It looks cool, though.
This is like if I showed up at a Civil War reenactment with no knowledge of the Civil War and was trying to figure out what's going on.
You saw Django Unchained, right? You have a vague conception of it. Or something
There's
like that.
This movie, you said it right, Devindra. There is no insight. There's no there. It's not attempting to do anything other than depict, they're just putting things on screen, but there's no, I guess there's some attempt at creating this dynamic between Napoleon and Josephine. And you get some sense that that relationship is the defining relationship of his life. But there's no, you don't understand why this man is important in history or how he did any of the things he did. They just sort of happen. And there's no insight, there's no understanding, there's no context. It's just like, hey, this happened. And now he's running through the palace. Why? You'll figure it out. And now there's a war, there's a battle. Does he want to be there? I don't know. How did he get there? What's happening? Why is he even fighting? Oh, now there's a couple of dudes sitting at a table going, this Napoleon, we got to deal with him. Who are they? What's going on? Who cares? Look at the big shiny explosions with the cannons that evidently didn't even work like that. It's like, what even is this? What is the point of this movie? There is no there. And Joaquin Phoenix you're right. He's a watchable. He's undeniably movie star, watchable.
And good at being
But-
a weird little dude. We
but
saw
he
3
has-
hours of that this year
He
already.
makes no concession to the fact that he is in a period piece.
Mhm.
He is completely modern in all his mannerisms, speech patterns. There's no, like, this is a movie about a bunch of French people and they all have English accents, except Joaquin Phoenix, who just talks like some dude I met on the street yesterday. He's just completely colloquial and, modern and it's so weird. Like all of his affectations are so contemporary, and it feels dissonant and odd. And like, why does everybody have a British accent? It's like Ridley Scott's like, well, in order for American audiences to buy this happens in a different country, we need to cast Brits. Like, but they were British.
Can I defend the movie a little bit? I hate that you're putting me in this position because I did not really like the movie very much either. But if I'm to defend the movie, first of all, I would much rather the path they chose, which is basically everyone just speaks in their own native accent, than
Ferrari.
everyone speaking a French accent. Like that is far superior, this path, than the other one, right? Which is
then why do you cast a bunch of Brits?
I mean, that's odd. I will give you
cast French people.
I will give you that, or have everyone speak in the same accent. But I'm reminded of The Death of Stalin. If you saw that movie, that was an interesting approach where he was deliberately. The director said, "No one is speaking in any Russian accent. Instead, everyone speaks in whatever their own accent is, and there is a wide variety." There is like some people who are like that, and that reflects that there is a diversity of different accents, even within Russia, and so on and so forth. It's very
That's
like
not what this movie's doing.
I agree. It feels less thoughtful in this movie than
and I don't even mean like I'm not saying, hey, Joaquin Phoenix, you needed to be speaking with a French accent. I'm a Napoleon. I don't want that.
Right? No, I get it.
But he's like
the cadence, and the
It's
the syntax.
He's like a dude, bro.
Yeah.
He's like a contemporary. There's no concession to the fact that 300 years ago, 400 years ago, that I don't know how long we were. What is it? What year was it?
My math will be a couple hundred. It was like 250 years ago. Yeah.
That perhaps the rhythms of speech were a little less relaxed.
Sure.
It's the way he is sort of I don't know, it just feels like a very contemporary performance.
It's the boats line, which people have been memeing out. But you think you're so special because you have boats. That's every podcaster. Right now.
Yes, and I get it. It's intended to be funny. This movie is intended to be funny numerous times. I don't know why.
So again, me defending the movie, but I think that
how dare you?
I think that they're trying to make it like give Napoleon and this time period the Veep or
right.
The thick of it or in the loop treatment, right?
But it's only occasionally that time.
I agree. That's weird. Like it's weird that it's basically 60 to 60% that, and then 20% these massive action scenes, and then 20% like these really weird romance scenes.
20% him aping MacGruber's sexual position, like the MacGruber. That's what he's doing.
Anyway, Jeff, I guess I'm saying I don't think it was entirely successful, but I do think they were trying to do something. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know about that. I think that I feel like this movie was an extraordinarily labor-intensive thing that feels lazy, right? Like it is this dichotomy of I can see the incredible amount of work and dedication it took to put that level of skill on screen, and yet it also feels extraordinarily lazy. It feels like what are we even attempting to do here? I have a bigger problem with this. This movie isn't terrible in the way that terrible movies are terrible. It's terrible in the way that movies that could have been great are terrible. Which I find sometimes even more offensive, because it's like, what was holding you back from actually doing the good version of this? Nothing.
I feel like he's hustling. Like they at some point during the interviews, he was like, "I made several movies while Martin Scorsese was working on Killers of the Flower Moon," right? And like
Right.
it seemed almost like a judgment there, like quantity being more important than quality. And I'm like, dude, great art takes time, but it does seem like he's pumping things out these days.
Yeah. I just found the whole endeavor to be questionable. Like what are we supposed to gain from watching nearly 3 hours of this? It is, what am I supposed to come? I have no understanding of how Napoleon became Napoleon. We watch him start. I mean, the movie, I'm starting a bunch of sentences. I'll actually finish one. Spielberg did something very smart with Lincoln. Like he named his movie Lincoln, but it's about a very narrow window of time.
Yep.
And so you can dig in and have a lot of detail with that, obviously based on a novel that, or not novel, but a book that did the same thing. But the point being, he didn't attempt to like start Lincoln at the beginning of Lincoln's life and give you the entire breadth of Lincoln, even though he called the movie Lincoln. Napoleon, it's just biting off way more than it can chew, and it collapses under the weight of just so much that there's nothing. There's so much there that there's actually nothing there. We don't gain anything. We don't understand anything. He's off in exile. We don't understand anything about that. He's back from exile. How did he do it? I don't know. He just showed up on a ship and told the dudes he was going to, like, why didn't he do that day one? Like, what is even, there's no cause and effect on display in this movie at all. It makes no sense to me. And it's a shame because the level of filmmaking is so high. The command of the medium on a visual level is unparalleled. Like what you see is spectacular, but to what end? I don't know. I'll shut up now, but I'm wildly disappointed by it. And one last thing, looking back, you talk about Devindra, I think you brought up, or no, maybe David was brought up Ridley Scott's oeuvre. And I find since 2010, I think there's one movie of his that I've liked.
The Martian. Yeah.
The Martian. Oh, I also like The Counselor, but you guys didn't.
Yeah. Oh man.
But like since Robin Hood in 2010, which not great either, but like American Gangster, a good year, American Gangster, Body of Lies are like 2006, 7, and 8. Good movies. Robin Hood, not great. And then we have Prometheus, The Counselor, Exodus, Gods and Kings, The Martian, great movie. Alien Covenant, All the Money in the World, The Last Duel, I know you guys liked, I did not. House of Gucci, and this. It's like, what happened?
Yeah, it's the scripts. Like when he has a good script, I feel like this dude can fire. But I don't know. Yeah,
he's not someone that there's some directors who I feel like are intimately involved in shaping the story for the better. And from what I hear, he's either not intimately involved with shaping the story, or if he is, it's to make things look cooler, right? And that generally doesn't serve the broader interest of the story.
I mean, we had a conversation with Damon Lindelof like a while ago, and like one of the things he mentioned offhandedly was like, you can't really tell Ridley Scott no if you wrote something some way and he wants to change it.
Exactly,
like,
and
it's Ridley Scott.
He kind of heavily implied. Damon Lindelof didn't say, but he kind of heavily implied that many of the issues that people had with Prometheus were because of what Ridley Scott wanted to do. That's just conjecture. I don't know really what the behind the scenes there was, but he's had a mixed track record for sure. Obviously, he's also delivered some of the greatest, epics of our time,
and not just epics, but like great. I mean, like Thelma and Louise. It's an amazing movie. You know,
his 80s and 90s were
movie.
Killer. Yeah.
All right. I will share a couple of quick thoughts and then we can do spoilers, but I was also pretty disappointed by this movie. I echo a lot of what Jeff said. I'm less down on the movie than Jeff. What is this movie about? It is about Napoleon's relationship with Josephine. That's kind of what it is about. Now, is that an interesting story that most people want to see? This movie made around $30 million this weekend. It got a B- cinema score, which is really bad. So I think the answer is no. I think this will probably not do well this month is my guess. After the word gets out that the movie's not what people are interested in.
But it's also not meant to, right? Because it's ultimately an Apple TV Plus movie, right?
It's a loss leader. But I think it's ultimately about this relationship. And what is there of the relationship is relatively interesting. I think both actors acquit themselves pretty well. Um, and you see that, like, oh, hey, this guy who wanted to be emperor of France and is taking like his kingdom stretches from like this part of the world to this part of the world, like he couldn't get his home life under control. And yes, it's a story we've seen many times, but like there's something inherently interesting about that dynamic. I don't think it's done particularly well. I think for all the reasons Jeff said, like the way the story is told and edited makes it feel very disjointed. But I do respect, like, there was a take there. It wasn't successful, but there was a take. The biggest thing that I am disappointed by, beyond what we've just discussed, is, look, I'm a big Joaquin Phoenix fan. Beau is Afraid, I'm like one of the 18 people that like loved that movie,
Yeah.
You
got to really set this up. Like, you liked Beau is Afraid.
Beau is Afraid. Fearless performance, I think, is amazing.
Wow.
I do not think he was the right person to play Napoleon, because there's something really interesting about somebody who's like in his 20s and 30s figuring all this stuff out. Like, imagine being like 31 and like you're like leading an army into battle. It's like, that's just like mind-blowing to consider. And like how would a young actor kind of tackle that task? There's something really like inherently interesting about that. That's completely lost. Joaquin Phoenix is almost 50 years old. Like
it's really hard to top, I think, the best Napoleon we've ever seen on screen, right? The one from Bill and Ted.
So true.
Yeah. He was a lot of fun.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Like it just
he's too old now, though. Let's be fair. Right?
He's old now.
Imagine someone who looks like really young playing this character, and like them needing to balance like all these different things, their own ambition, the weight of their country's expectations, their relationship with their wife. Like, that is, in my opinion, like an interesting dynamic inherently that, like, because they cast Joaquin Phoenix, they couldn't do. So ultimately, I didn't get much out of this movie, but the
should have been what's his name from The Bear.
Yeah, Jeremy Allen White. Is that what you think?
Yeah, too large, too big.
No, short.
You need like, I don't know, was Napoleon actually short? But he was definitely like had that energy of like, dealing with not being as large as everybody else.
I will say, I love the fact that Joaquin Phoenix's version of Napoleon like has the hat on like for 90% of the movie.
He has the entire military
costume.
outfit on. There's never. I was trying to find a single shot where he's not wearing the full military outfit.
Yeah, and I do think that's like that goes to build the character, And there's a lot of like nice, funny moments. It's trying to be kind of be a comedy when it's not on the battlefield, which is really weird. Like,
weird.
It's just a really weird choice. But there are like a handful of really funny moments in the movie that I did enjoy. So I don't think this movie is devoid of any merit. I think there's some things that are worth checking out about it. But it certainly, as you said, Jeff, fails to live up to its potential as like a searing or insightful look into Napoleon's life, or why he did what he did, or how he did what he did.
Yeah.
I mean, I think when you go into a biopic like this, at least I want to come out of it feeling like I have some greater understanding of the historical information.
Yeah.
And I just feel like this movie completely fails in that task.
Yeah. What did you guys think about the sort of like meme advertising campaign for this movie, which is a thing we've seen more and more? I feel like Tar, I don't know if that was directly pushed by the studio, but those clips, like, you think you're so special because you have boats. Like, that is a line that is, I believe, like circulating. That clip is circulating. It's on TikTok. This movie has been chopped up into the fun meme parts, and that is what's out there in the marketing. I think that's just a little weird too. Like, I guess we can't help it. That's the world we live in now. But
I don't think that's weird. I think where it will start to become a concern is like when the movie starts being made for those moments.
Yes.
Maybe they already are, but like when it's like, oh, we need to put this line in because it's going to play great on the TikTok that we're going to use to advertise the movie. Maybe they're already doing that. I remember Chris McQuarrie saying, like, every day he tries to get one shot for the trailer of the Mission Impossible movie, and so it's kind of just like the next level of that, in my opinion. I'm not bothered. I'm not bothered by it because it does fit with the tone of the movie.
We all lived through Snakes on a Plane. It's not new.
But I would be more bothered if it didn't fit with the tone of the movie at all. It's very like it is advertising what you get in the movie. So Does it concern you, Devindra? Is it like
I mean,
worrying?
it is part of the sort of like dumbing down of how we discuss movies and everything too. Like if all you see is the memes, which is even a less substantive
Mhm.
version of like what to expect than a trailer, it's like what then you I don't know, like are you gonna be annoyed that the entire movie isn't all meme quips like that? I don't know.
Mhm.
It just
That's why
feels
the B
weird to me.
minus on CinemaScore maybe. Where
Exactly.
like where were the boat lines in
We
the
need more
movie?
boats.
Yeah, we need more boats. All right.
I have
Yep.
a real quick anecdote. I think regular listeners of the podcast have heard us discuss before that part of the regular experience of going to press screenings is that as we leave, the
Yes.
PR agent
Yeah. They ask for your opinion on
they
the
will
movie. Yeah.
ask for a couple of sentences
Yeah.
of what you thought.
Mhm.
We've actually discussed this before, and I have made it a point
Yeah.
to do that now because
Awesome.
I was admonished by David to
I'm sure they appreciate it, Jeff. I'm
Yeah.
sure they appreciate it. Yeah.
Came out of the Napoleon press screening and walked, beelined it to my PR representative, and they went, "We don't need to know this time."
Looking at his face, looking at Jeff's face.
Is it because you didn't like it, or because they?
No, I think they just weren't taking opinions. Like
'cause they're
Ridley
like,
doesn't.
My heart
give a
can only
shit.
take so much. I'm crying already.
Gives no shits what you
the
think.
people behind this
So
movie are Ridley Scott and Apple TV Plus, and they do not care.
don't
what
waste
you're-
both of our times, and it won't be read at all by anyone. So let's
That's
just
awesome.
yeah.
I love that. All right. All right, well, let's get to spoilers for Napoleon starting right now. I don't know if there's anything we want to talk about at the end of this movie. I will say, the movie has, I think, 3 to 4 big action scenes.
Mhm.
There's that siege on the wall at the beginning. There's with the cannons going through the ice in the middle, and then there's Waterloo at the end. And every single one of those sequences is incredible. Like I was so grateful to be able to watch it in a theater. And Waterloo is like, really well done. Like you can understand. I think the way the film shows it, you can understand why he would have failed horribly in that scene.
Yeah,
right. Like,
and there's some like really good revealing character stuff there too. Like in the first battle, he is like, I feel like he feels almost like I got to get up there, right? And he runs like I'm going to be a hero. Horse gets obliterated.
That was amazing.
When Horse's last day before retirement. Poor Horse. But there's
one
a
last
sense,
job for the horse.
one last job. There's a sense that he's always trying to prove himself, and that you kind of see that in the battle scenes. And then by the end, it's sort of like, oh, I've made a huge mistake, but I just got to commit to it. It is very much also Fassbender's character in The Killer, right? Like, don't admit your defeat. You have your philosophy, you have it set. You just got to keep going. That's it.
Yeah.
Stick to the plan. Don't improvise.
One of the ways I tried to figure out what this movie was about was via the text in the last scene of the movie. Like the ending of a movie, the end screen where they show you the text can often be a key to what the movie was trying to say. Now, hopefully you get to the end and you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, that's why Poochie left.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, hopefully you get to
sense.
the end and you're like, oh, that's. I understand why they
the
did
final
that.
shot of this movie is me in the theater trying to stay awake for the screen. It's like,
yeah, the final shot is Napoleon falling over
from the back,
right, keeling over, and then
everybody in my theater was like, what? Cut to black.
Now in a worst case or not as good case scenario, you have a situation where I'm like trying to suss out like what they're trying to say with the end credits or the end text. And essentially it said, in his life, Napoleon led these battles, and it shows you like all these battles, this battle, 100,000 dead, this battle, like 300,000, so on. In his whole life, like millions and millions dead. I'm like, that's it.
Okay. Yeah, all right.
That's
a big number.
First of all,
a really big number.
It gave me like a window into like a different version of this movie where like that is the focus of the movie, which
that
is
had
like
a point. Yeah.
Which is essentially, I think, if I'm to intuit what the text is trying to be about, it's like, Napoleon in real life is a very controversial figure because his actions led to the deaths of millions of people.
Yeah.
Right?
What is the cost of one man's ambition?
Was that worth it? Yeah. What is the cost of one man's ambition? Great question, Devindra. I wish the movie had kind of addressed it in any meaningful way. Like, but it doesn't really. Every cost that is incurred is shown through his perspective. It's
Yeah.
you don't really see millions of people die. Like that's news to me. I mean, you see that going into Russia, that's a miserable decision, and obviously that was bad. But like, you don't see the magnitude of the loss that is inflicted by Napoleon because of his actions.
Yeah.
So that's just a really weird. I was like, is that what the 4-hour cut's going to be about? Like that was kind of what I was asking. You know,
I hope so. Did you guys ever see Oliver Stone's Alexander?
No, I know there's a director's cut of that movie that was
there is a director's cut, but that's also watching. I saw that in theaters too, and that's another like big, ambitious biopic with huge battle sequences, with some like not entirely successful. But I do think that movie was at least trying to do something operatically that this one quite wasn't. And it's also interesting because Napoleon's almost comparing himself to previous leaders too. I sort of look at these movies, together in a way. That's a fascinating film. Yeah.
You know, people have described this movie as feeling very edited to shreds, and Jeff, it sounds like you're like less curious than ever to watch the 4-hour cut. Yes. I'm like really intrigued because I'm like, there's all these like interesting, tidbits, like his interactions with that guy. Was it Tsar Alexander, whoever that guy that he was like fighting, and then he became like friends with him or whatever.
I think he's also the main character in Catherine, the Great, the show The Great, which is a great show. And
it's like it just feels like we get like 3 to 4 scenes with him, and I'm like, what is going on there?
I gave him nearly 3 hours.
Then they hate each other. We don't know why.
Like, what happened there? Like, what we gotta know. There's got to be more information there. You know, like that's what I feel. Anyway, but Jeff, you're not. Yeah,
I would be. Let me just say, I would be excited for the director's cut. I hope it's actually better, but I do feel like I gave this movie nearly 3 hours of my life. You know, it's like I got to do that again.
Right.
And with more, with the hope that it gets better. I'm just going to wait for those early reviews, I guess.
I'm with Devindra on this one. I feel like, fool me once. I just have zero confidence that the movie gave me very little confidence that the filmmakers actually were attempting something that is of interest to me. And that bums me out. Like maybe there's some way that an edit and more footage changes that, but I don't see a path there. It felt like, it really felt like a mess.
Could it be the Kingdom of Heaven director's cut, or could it be that extended version of Australia, which is now on Hulu, because Baz Luhrmann had a lot of time during the pandemic, turned the movie into a miniseries. So.
Which I've heard is actually pretty solid. I'm planning to watch it and discuss it here on the podcast.
I'd like to see some of it. But
that's another sort of grander point that I feel. I don't know if you guys would agree or
I want to hear that, but just to clarify, Baz Luhrmann took Australia and then recut it into a 6-part series that's available on Hulu. It's called Faraway Downs.
Yes.
I'm really excited to check it out because I actually was a fan of Australia. All right, Jeff Kanata, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, it kind of relates to that. What I was going to say, I don't know if you guys agree with this, but it feels to me, especially this sort of older generation of filmmakers like Scorsese and Ridley Scott here, they're sort of, I guess they've always pushed the envelope with length of film, but it feels like they're so resistant to enter into the prestige television format when their subject matter would just benefit so much from being episodic.
Ridley Scott's done a lot of TV shows, is the thing. Like,
he's done a lot of first episodes of a TV show to get that. And he's
executive produced a whole bunch of shows. So
I just think that a project like this, if you want to do all of Napoleon's life, give me 4, 5, 6 episodes of a thing.
Yeah.
Like maybe that 4-hour cut will be 4 episodes. Like it could just end up like that.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's a shame because I wish this movie either just took a narrow view of a few years of his life and really went into detail on it, or allowed itself to be a series where each episode can be a chunk of the life, because it just, as is, it doesn't feel like it does service to any part of his life.
I mean, the poster image of Napoleon says he came from nothing, he conquered everything. He came from nothing?
That's not in the movie.
News to me. It's not even in the movie, right? Like
he says to his brother, "I was like, we don't want people to think of us like little thugs from where is it?
Right,
Corsica."
But it's like you don't really see that part of his life. Really,
we start with him as a general, I think.
Yeah, that's right. But Jeff, I would say that the number of filmmakers that are resistant to that is probably like single digits at this point. Like,
I think it's a very specific generation of filmmakers.
Right, but Scorsese doesn't want to do that, obviously. Right. Ridley Scott doesn't want to do that, but Quentin Tarantino did it. Quentin Tarantino, one of the like preeminent defenders of the film going experience, was like, let's cut up Hateful Eight, right, for Netflix. So Baz Luhrmann's doing it for Hulu. I think we're going to see it more and more often that, you know, these filmmakers are open to it. So,
which isn't to say I don't like a film experience. I just feel like these ones that are sort of bursting at the seams and overwrought and past 3 hours and stuff like that. It just feels like why force that format when you have this other one available to you?
Yeah, if I had to guess, I think, you know, these filmmakers came up in a certain generation where like movies were the big thing, and you know, and that's and they are where epic storytelling can take place. And I think it's hard to get away from that mindset. That your movie needs to be seen in a theater, and you can't have a 6-hour long movie that's released nationwide, you know, in general.
I mean, it's nothing new though. I mean, freaking older films, especially in the 70s, like were past 2.5 hours all the time. Amadeus is almost 3 hours long. Like it is a thing. It's not exactly a new thing. If anything, the idea that we should try to slim those stories or extend them to TV or something, I think that is the newer thing. And
well, the difference is now that we've seen what a 6 to 10 hour long story that's high budget can be, you know.
Also, the difference is there's the option for that.
Yeah,
right. You didn't. I mean, I guess you had things like Roots in the early 80s.
It took a while. Like
but
now there's rare. There's hundreds of them. There's you can watch hundreds without even leaving your house now. That's the difference, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, despite everything we have just said, at the end of the day, it is really impressive that Ridley Scott made a movie. Thank you so much for watching this video of the Filmcast. Check out these other videos that we have available, and be sure to hit like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to get other videos from us in the future.
You can also go to thefilmcast.com to catch all of our audio podcast versions of all of our episodes.
And support this podcast at patreon.com/filmpodcast, where you can sign up for ad-free episodes and exclusive After Darks.
Thanks so much to everyone who makes the Filmcast possible.